And in Florida, it is the first full day for the defense in the George Zimmerman murder trial. He is charged in the shooting of teenager Trayvon Martin. Zimmerman is claiming self-defense. Well, on Friday, the mothers of both men testified. Each claimed it was their son heard on a 911 call. The answer could help jurors decide who the aggressor was.
So you think he's yelling help?
Yes.
All right, what is your number?
There's gunshots.
You just heard gunshots?
Yes.
Ma'am, that screaming or yelling, do you recognize that?
Yes.
And who do you recognize that to be, ma'am?
Trayvon Benjamin Martin.
Do you know whose voice that was screaming in the background?
Yes, sir.
And whose voice was that?
My son, George.
And are you certain of that?
Because he's my son.
With us now, CBS News analyst Jack Ford. Good morning, Jack.
Morning, Nora.
So explain that. How is it that both mothers believe it was their son's voice?
You know, when you're trying a case, especially a prosecution case, you want to end up with strong witnesses, maybe some emotion, maybe solid evidence, testimony. Here, in a murder case, you don't have a victim, obviously, but the best they could have is a victim's family member. And it's also about an issue that's in trial. It's not just the emotion of let's put a victim's family member on here. So you have the one mother saying, and probably truly believing this is my son. And then, as we've seen so often in this case, the prosecution gets something and the defense gets something, sometimes from the very same witnesses. So here we have the prosecution rests, first witness on the stand for the defense, the other mother, George Zimmerman's mother, who also truly believes that's her son there, kind of canceling each other out.
Yeah, that confusion, I think, created there. And the prosecution rested on Friday. Do you think that George Zimmerman may be acquitted?
Oh, I've said from the very beginning, we've talked here, look, this is a winnable case for the prosecution, but it's a very hard case for the prosecution. It's not a slam dunk because the defense has a real defense here. The question is, will the jury accept?
Well, how do you think the prosecution did?
I think they did as well as they could, possibly, understanding that with so many of their witnesses that they gave the prosecution some testimony. You know, we heard prosecution witnesses, some of them saying Trayvon Martin was on top in the fight. That's good for the defense. Right. We heard some prosecution witnesses saying George Zimmerman was on top in the fight. That's good for the prosecution.
Well, and even the medical examiner didn't exactly help them out.
You didn't get that. Again, so many cases, the cause of death is a big issue. So you finish up with your medical examiner. Here it's not. Everybody knows how Trayvon Martin died. The question is who started the fight here. So the medical examiner doesn't really help the prosecution with that.
Based on what happened then last week with the prosecution, does the defense need to put George Zimmerman on the stand?
That's such a great question. That's the tough question here. You know, ordinarily with a self-defense, you have to testify, but the jurors have already heard him in so many different ways. The defense might say, why run the risk of cross-examination here? We've got his story there. The flip side to that is you're always wondering, if you're a defense attorney, will the jurors say, you know what, if I'm innocent and I'm charged with something, you couldn't keep me off of that witness
Well, so what would you do if you were?
I probably, looking at this, probably err on the side of caution, which is to say we don't need to put him on the stand. Things are going in pretty well from the defense perspective. The jurors have heard everything he's had to say. I can argue to these jurors as the defense attorney, look, he volunteered. He didn't get a lawyer. He volunteered to talk, and that should mean something to you. It's going to be a very close case here for the jurors to decide.
Jack Ford, thanks.